In today's show, we discuss, do we need to regulate social media?
And now, the TNT Talk Show, daring to go where other podcasts fear to tread.
Hello, I'm Tony Fasulo, and I share the stage with my esteemed friend and colleague, Taya Boya. Taya, hello, my friend, once again. I hope you're keeping safe and well.
Yeah, what the hell, Tony? What you gonna do, eh?
Come on. Say hi to our wonderful audience. Come on.
Yeah, I don't mind. You know that I don't mind. Hello, audience. How are you? Today
Yay! It's lovely now that we have to do this. We don't have to, don't get hassled, don't get grief. We just get on with it with a big smile. This is how we're made for TV. So come on, this is great.
Anyway, just wanted to share with you the wise words of Dr. Alatamba. Dr. Isaiah Henry said, and I quote, "In the land of broken mirrors, only the sun can truly see itself." In the land of broken mirrors, only the sun can truly see itself. Wow. No, I'm not gonna lie.
Even that look from you, I'm pretty sure that look from you is saying, what nonsense is he trying to keep a straight face?
I'm actually, do you see I'm not laughing or anything? This one really gets me here. No, I'm not even laughing. I mean, I'm serious. In the land of broken mirrors, only the sun can truly see itself. I mean, come on, man. It gives me chills.
It gives you chills. What does it mean? Come on, explain.
Look. When you are up close and personal to something, right? When you're up close and personal to something, it's like, for example, you accidentally drop a mirror, you got all these shards. Because you are that close to the chaos, you can't get an accurate sense of yourself or anything. But the sun, being so far away, being so massive, it is able to see itself, even because of all these disparate, shattered pieces all over the place. You can't. The chaos cannot affect it. In other words, the man whose soul or society or any corporate entity that is large enough and big enough and strong enough and self-confident enough cannot be discombobulated by chaos. It is actually advice. All this is all advice. He's telling you what to seek. You seek confidence in yourself. You seek to be the palm wine drinker who watches the man climb the baobab tree. That's what you're trying to do.
If you have to then subsequently explain it, which is what you're doing, then it shows that the quote was too ridiculous, because you can interpret that in any way, shape or form. Anyway, I don't want to dwell on Dr. Isaiah Henry. He's driving me insane. So let's...
You've only got how many have you got left?
5 left.
You're counting?
Yes, I'm counting.
He's actually counting down.
I will be celebrating once we've got past all those. But anyway.
Oh, let's find out what replaces it. Fair enough.
Right. Okay, let's move on with today's show. And today we're going to discuss quite a hot topic, really. Do we need to regulate social media? Now, this was actually one of your questions, but I wanted to discuss it, strangely enough. So, do you want to kick off, because it was your original question, or would you like me to raise the first part, just because of why I wanted to talk about it?
Okay, so I'm really shocked to hear it was my idea. I thought it was yours, and whatever I had in mind is completely gone. So yeah, I think you should. I thought it was yours.
No, not really. I think it was yours, definitely. But I'm happy to talk about it because...
Yeah. I know why. It was a TikTok ban. Yeah, okay.
Okay. Oh, is that why? TikTok ban. Okay, now you've remembered. Do you want to elaborate?
Well, the American government seems to believe that there is a necessity to regulate social media, and it is trying to do so, but only certain social media, if you're paying any attention. They want to regulate the one that actually gave people the greatest freedoms. And the ones that didn't give people great freedoms, they didn't mind. And that kind of makes you wonder that when we talk about regulating social media platforms, can we do it in a way that government doesn't expect, which is to insist as voters and to only vote for people who wish to regulate social media platforms by completely deregulating them?
Right. This is where I have a problem. So you and I differ in your terms of free speech. I get the ability to have free speech. I get that. And it should be allowed and should not be curtailed. Where I have a problem with is free speech on social media. The reason for that is because social media, especially the algorithms, are designed to propagate what you say. So, if there's no way of the listener of whatever the message is to rate the message, to say, yeah, I agree with this or I don't agree with this, so it goes up and down some scale, why should a post on social media, dare say, that inflames, creates an emotional response, whether it's true or not, be allowed to propagate and be seen by millions of people when we can't verify if that post is indeed true or not? This is where I have a problem. So free speech I don't have a problem with. I have a problem with the propagation effect of social media. So you get people who are adept at creating a post which inflames or polarizes or creates an emotional response, and so doing people engage, and it then spreads like wildfire because the algorithm likes that, and that's what I got a problem with.
Well, the thing about it is that only goes so far. It's clickbait you're talking about, isn't it? Because somebody puts up a clickbait type of title, if you like.
Post, yeah,
Caption, yes,
video, could be anything.
And you look at it and you go, oh, what's all that about? But, increasingly we're becoming sophisticated denizens, if you like, of social media. We're nowadays you can spot clickbait title from...
Are you sure?
Well, I can. I don't know about
you can, yeah, but you're maybe, one of those few who've got the ability to critically think. I dare say there are a lot of people out there who do not. And I see them all the time on social media, because you see a particular post and it does the rounds and you see all these people that you know who are agreeing with it. And it's like, well, hold on, that's clearly nonsense. But they have not got the critical thinking skills yet to analyze those posts and decide and understand that actually this can't be true, and this is part of the challenge.
This is very worrying because what you're saying is that the average voter is a nincompoop who is easily swayed.
You're putting words into my mouth. I haven't said that. You said that.
By click. It's actually idiots basically who can't apply critical thinking. I mean, you know the funny thing I'm going to say? I agree with you. You're right. However, those are the inherent dangers of free speech. And rather than combat it by trying to control free speech, which I believe ultimately you can't, let's not forget that the Soviet Union did actually fall. And they couldn't control free speech over, eventually the people will just break out, because eventually you can't stop people from thinking. It's impossible. Now, what you could do is to, and I think you should do, is to fiercely fight misinformation and disinformation with good information. And that's what you should do. You could hire people, instead of having people say, this content is banned because it contradicts, not contradicts, it's what's the word they use? Because it's something our, it's
fact
something
checkers
our,
check
no.
Makes...
Like I just got banned by Facebook again. When they say this...
Yeah, but you were being inflammatory to an individual. Were you not?
So it was being inflammatory to me first.
So have you both been banned?
Well, I don't know, because he's probably reported me and I'm banned and he's not. But when I report people, they don't get banned. Only I get banned, and I
How
believe
do
that's
you know
because of
that they don't get banned?
because they tell me. They said, no, we've had a look at your complaints and it's fine. No problem. But they tell me stuff, so I'm complaining. It's the same, I'm complaining for the same thing. But when I give it back to people, I get banned, and I believe it's because of my anti-Israeli stance. Anyway, but let's not. I don't want to get involved in all that. I was saying there's a word I'm looking for, contravene maybe, but that's not the word they use. Your remarks contravene our community standards.
Right.
So blah blah blah. And I'm saying instead of that, what they could have and should have is an army of paid people who sit down and actually argue. It could even be a bot. It doesn't have to be people. Just a bot that says, "Oh, this is nonsense," and then gives cogent reasons for why it's nonsense. Those people that you say are your friends and they believe what they're being shown. No one is coming back, or maybe you are going back and saying, "Hey, hang on, this, that, and here are the facts." Now, if you did that often enough and loudly enough, eventually there'll just be the facts out there, and anybody who's talking nonsense would be good. But look at this issue of the COVID vaccines. There's so much information on both sides of the aisle. I can't make heads or tails out of what's right. I've given up. I threw my arms in the air and said, I don't even understand anymore. These people say the other guys are wrong. These people say they've got their own facts and figures. Who's right? Who's wrong? I don't know.
Yeah, don't get me started with that. Only because hard decisions have to be made in government, and it's the lesser of two evils.
Yeah, well, I don't know. That's what I just said. I don't know.
It would be.
No, I'm saying I don't know. It could be that these people were, what people are saying, there was vested interests, and those vested interests thought about, this woman is in big trouble. Ursula von der Leyen, I believe her name is. The EU.
Ursula von der EU commissioner.
Yeah, she's in huge trouble about how those contracts were given out.
Everyone's in trouble with that.
She could end up in prison.
Well, because all the contracts that were given out with special dispensation because they're rushed.
Money in pockets, money changing hands kind of thing.
No,
I'm not
if that was happening, then obviously that's clearly wrong.
I'm saying that she's been investigated and she looks to be in big trouble now. Maybe she's completely innocent.
Well, that's not a vaccine problem. That's more a fraud problem where someone was giving somebody a sweetener and a backhander. That's different. That's not the vaccine at fault. We're talking fraud going on in high places. That's a different subject. What I was thinking about is on this issue is hard decisions being made in times of distress, which is what the government had to do when they're confronted with a situation that they didn't fully understand, and they were looking for solutions because they didn't want to destabilize the whole country. Hence, they looked at these companies who were providing information on a potential vaccine and fast-tracked it. Yes, they had enough people to do the testing because they did, but they fast-tracked it knowing that there could be some fallout from the vaccine. Now, if you have to make a decision, it's like the psychological decisions that they present sometimes. You've got a railway track, it has to switch 2 lanes. One lane, you've got a big guy tied to the track. The other side, you've got a family of 3 tied to the track. You have to pick which way are you going to let the track. Sorry?
The family of 3 is not even a problem for me.
Okay, you can make the tough decisions then.
Yeah, because I'm a big guy.
Okay.
So that could be me tied to the track. So yeah.
Okay.
The other people.
Well, this is what I'm saying. Government have to make decisions, and unfortunately, there's going to be some casualties, and that's how they view it. The same on a battlefield. A general will risk a certain number of troops in order to win the war, and the same applies. So
that's not the no. I don't accept that. That's not false equivalence. You're not arguing the point. The point we're talking about here is social media.
Yes, so social media. We digressed.
No. But still on. But you just slightly went off. You took. Anyway, where social media is concerned, if you recall, there was a lot of censorship at the time on social media.
Yeah.
So I'm saying that if that censorship had not taken place, the debate would have been aired in public and I would have been able to form a better opinion. But since one side was being silenced, I have no idea whether they were right or wrong.
You're in the middle you're in the middle of a house burning down and you wanted to stop and have a debate. They're having to worry about
Nobody was
putting
saying
the fire
stop
out.
anything. I did not say stop anything. Just don't, you're in a house and it's burning down and you don't know which way to go. And some people are saying, let's go this way. Other people are saying, let's go that way. But you want to hear what everybody's got to say. You don't want one group of people to be silenced. And then you find out in the end that they were right. And we're all going to burn to death now because we didn't have a chance to hear what the other people were saying.
Yeah, but when a lot of the other people were saying it wasn't researched back. You have to sort of have a standard somewhere.
How do you know it wasn't? Because we weren't allowed to hear them what they.
But you don't have time in the middle of a crisis, do you?
Well, we did have time in the middle of a blooming crisis because we're not going anywhere. Because here we are, 4 years later. So let them say what the hell they want to say. If they're talking nonsense like the flat Earth people are talking nonsense, we will quickly divine that. And we will quickly say, okay, you're talking nonsense.
But if the flat Earth people are talking nonsense, why are they still propagating on these social media? It's still there. It hasn't gone away.
Yeah, that's just contrarianism. I mean, I'm pretty sure they know they're talking nonsense. I mean, there's no way you can convince me that they don't know.
You don't know. Some of them are hell-bent believers on it. How do you stop someone believing something? You can't.
No,
There's
you
religions out there that you might look and think twice at, but they still believe it.
So you defend against that by training people to spot the weaknesses in their arguments.
I totally get that. That's the adult, grown-up way of doing it.
You don't tell the flat Earth people to shut up. What you do is every time they post stuff, you go in there. This is why I'm saying that people should be hired to do that. It's their job to go in and to follow these people. And every time they talk nonsense, they just say, you're talking nonsense and this is why. And eventually you will defeat it because good ideas will destroy bad ideas.
I get that. But when you're in the middle of an emergency and you're affecting people's lives, then you have another problem.
No, when you are affecting people's lives, that is absolutely the time to calm down and to use rational thoughts and not...
Absolutely.
But what are you talking about? Absolutely. And then you turn around and say, no, let's not discuss it. Let's just go with our instincts. That's not how thinking
Once people have made a decision in government, they've got to stick to that decision, have they? They've got to change it on a whim.
Not necessarily. Someone could come up with information and go, look at this piece of information, and then you must do a U-turn. Because you find out, hang on.
Indeed.
But you silenced them. Now they can't tell you because you refuse to listen.
Yeah.
So how's that going to help?
Okay. So when Putin decided to go into Ukraine, I'm diversifying here a little bit. So when people say, no, don't do it, he says, no, we need to do it for these reasons. Other people go, no, but the evidence is here. This is the evidence. What? He's got to wait and listen to all of them? No, he's made a decision. That's what he's doing, and he's fully going through with it. If retrospectively later he looks back and thinks, okay, maybe that wasn't the best decision at the time, he had to make a decision at the time. That's what strong leaders do. Now, granted, a lot of the leadership across the world, you can't just pin it on people in the West. It happened in all foreign countries as well. They all had vaccines of their own. Wait, what? Every single vaccine is wrong? Every single leader was wrong? They all pretty much adopted the same strategy because they were under pressure. So it's not right or wrong.
You know, there was a time when it was widely accepted that the Earth was flat and was at the middle of the universe. By the way, it might be at the universe. It might be at the middle of the universe. There are reasons to think it is, but let's not get distracted now. There was a time when they thought the Earth was flat. It's definitely not flat. And everybody thought that. So everybody was wrong. So actually, there are times when everybody can be wrong. That's a great time to think about and to listen to what other people have to say. It's very easy to listen to a flat earther and pay him attention and listen to what he has to say and say, okay, that doesn't make any sense because A, B, C, D, shut up, go away. Yes. It's easy to do that. Now, I'm saying that if you stifle free speech, like you've just said, Putin could have said, okay, you guys are going blah, 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 I'm going to go in anyway. So why did they stifle our free speech? They could just have said, no, we're doing the vaccines. We don't care what you say. Oh,
because
by the way,
social media, the problem with social media is exactly the reason why we're discussing this show. Because of this virability of it. If someone posts something which is clearly not based on fact, because they've plucked it out the air and come up with a weird and wonderful argument, if it's not based on fact, it propagates because the algorithm will propagate it. So you're allowing false information, clearly false, to spread because it elicits an emotional response.
Well,
so you
fine.
have to then nip it on the bud in social media. If someone wanted to say the vaccines are rubbish on a street corner, no one's going to arrest them for it.
Okay, so what I'm saying
It's
is this.
only on the social media platform because it amplifies things when, because the algorithm, there's a fundamental fault in the way social media operates. It's for their benefit, clearly, because it's a money earner, but by the same token, they reward propagation, virally propagated content. They reward you because if you get a content of anything that goes viral, you're going to make money. So you don't really care on the content, whether it's truthful or not, but if it goes viral and makes you money, well, hey, quid's in. That's a failing of the algorithm. So the social media companies have designed it that way to encourage their users, and we are users, same as a drug addict, encourage their users to create content on the platform because you'll be rewarded for it. Now, it doesn't say you create honest content, you make content that's good for everybody else. No, just create content that if it goes viral, you know what, you make some money. So that's the de facto way of creating content, because if you create something that's inflammatory, if it creates emotional response, it doesn't have to be true, could be sort of true, you know what, let's do it. And you know how it works. Viral content, when it spreads, that's it, there's no stopping it, whether it's right or wrong.
So just to double check that we're both on the same page here, and I think we should be introducing this into our conversations nowadays. Let me just ask you this. What am I arguing?
You're arguing for free speech.
Well, yes, and?
That there should be no stopping anything.
And how do we fight it?
With correct information.
Exactly. So
It's not
nothing
a
is
fair playing
contradicting what
field.
it's not what you're saying. When every post that goes viral it invites comments. And you can put comment. I think X is, I'm not on X, so it's just what I've heard secondhand. I believe that X allows people to now flag content, what do they call them? Tweets or ticks or whatever? What do they call them now?
X's.
Oh, they're called X's?
Yeah.
Oh, God. Anyway.
He's bad.
Yes. Yeah, God. You're not allowed to, you are not able to flag X's. So a whole bunch of people come and flag your X and say, this guy's talking
Nonsense.
a load of baloney. So
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
I actually like that.
That's what
But the other platforms don't have it.
Well, then that's how we regulate them, by insisting that they must have it. So
Yes.
you don't run around. But government, the U.S. government in particular, and even ours, I believe, the U.K., they're not really worried about misinformation and disinformation. They're worried about information that doesn't promote their points of view, the ones that they want you to hear. It was the fact that millions of young Americans were seeing for themselves what was going on in Gaza, and were obviously coming to the conclusion that the American government was talking nonsense about, it's a fair war, and that and the resulting emotion against Israel and Netanyahu and what Israel is doing. Well, I don't even like to use that word. What the illegal occupiers of Palestine are doing there. It was that reaction, that AIPAC-driven American government. That's why I call it the United States of Israel and not the United States of America. The AIPAC-driven government had beef with TikTok. It's not because, it's a bunch of women doing social media things and complaining about men and people dancing and stuff and singing. Why should that annoy anyone? Because it allows the truth to filter out, and they don't want. You know what they say? You can't handle the truth. That famous quote from the film. So this is their problem. It's not genuine. There's no genuine desire to protect people from misinformation, because the way to do it is to let the system regulate itself, which is
Do you
why
think that that's wise, that it should regulate itself, or do you think there should be a body, a voted-in body who do or who are challenged with ensuring that the content is managed?
Oh my God, absolutely not. Do you know, I used to quote, I feel so embarrassed now. And this is what I've always said, and I'll continue to say to my dying breath. The thing I fear the most is ignorance. Because true ignorance, real ignorance, is not knowing that you don't know. And if you don't know that you don't know, you can't fix it because you're totally ignorant. I have been running around for the past few years promoting Snopes.com as the bastion of fact-checking. You know, it knows, the people there are disinterested, they're objective, they know what they're talking about, they do the research and everything. And then I find out, oh my God, they've got so many problems. People have been complaining about Snopes.com for so long. They've got huge problems even internally. They've got problems amongst themselves. They've got problems with other people. And there I was ignorantly going around saying Snopes.com. Here's the thing. Back in the days of the Romans, your mob from years ago.
My mob.
Yeah, well, you're Italian, aren't you? So your mob from years and years ago.
Descendant, yeah.
Yeah. What was it, 2,000-3,000 years ago, whatever. Some wiseacre, he said, and I forget his name. It was almost there. He said, who will guard the guardians? I don't know how to say that in Italian or whatever. Yeah. Who will guard the guardians? This is the problem. You get a bunch of people together and you say, okay, you're the fact checkers now and this and that. Who is going to check on them? At the end, I don't want to use it.
Well, how do we do government now?
What do you mean, how do we do government now?
We do government in that manner. We vote in somebody to represent us.
Yeah, and how's that working out for us?
Yeah, I know, but...
I mean, we've got Keir Starmer, and they've got Donald Trump. I mean, those are not wins by any chance.
No,
and it seems the two people that are doing that well by their citizens, Vladimir Putin is voted in, but people say that the system is flawed. And Xi is not really voted in by the population. It is voted in by the Chinese... Wait, what's it again? The Communist Party of China.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but they seem to be doing really well for their people. Anyway, my argument is this: the best way to do it is to let people, the average man, you, me, and the ones who'd say we know critical thinking, give us an opportunity.
Yeah, but the majority of people don't know that.
Yeah, but we, the ones who do, it becomes our responsibility to go on to these things and point out the facts.
But that's what fact checkers do.
Yeah, no. Well, we should not, because when you said fact checkers, then you are depending on a small cohort, a small cabal, and they're easily inveigled. I mean, $100,000, you can look the other way.
I'm not sure about that.
What do you mean? You want me to offer you $50,000?
Look
not only will you look the other way, you walk around pretending to be blind and using a blooming walking stick, man. Come on. No, man.
No, I'm not convinced on that one, because let's look at Wikipedia, for instance. Wikipedia has been independent ever since its inception, and there's no large corporate involved in Wikipedia. They do get people who check the facts and make sure that pages are updated accordingly. So they're not aligned to anyone in particular, and they've managed to do it. I dare say there's been companies who've flashed the cash during its term, but they're still doing it themselves, and they're doing it. So I mean, look, going back to social media, let's park Wikipedia for a second. If the social media platforms themselves would allow posts to be challenged by individual users, or stop them propagating, why do they need to have 1 million views? I mean, what's all that about? Why? Unless you have built up some credibility over a period of time. So you've like, we'll use eBay as an example. eBay, if you're a seller, you've got to create and build up your seller advantage, so to speak. So you've got to get a lot of 5-star reviews for your seller ratings to go up. So in other words, you're a trusted seller. Wouldn't the social media companies benefit from something like that? So if you are a trusted poster, you post stuff which has been liked by other people, and those people have approved it and think it's good quality, then your standing goes up. So were you to release material, then you get more eyes on it. Whereas if you start at the bottom, then you can't release a post that 1 million people will see, because you're a nobody until you've built up your credibility. Isn't that a bit like how life works?
It is a bit how it is a bit like how life works, but you don't need credibility in order to tag someone's post and explain why it's wrong. And if it's wrong, it's wrong.
No, I know. The tagging you can do. Anyone can do that. But I'm just saying, if you create the post, the tagging should be open to every individual on the platform. They should all be able to vote it up or down. I think there's an app. I think Quora is one. Do you know Quora? The app Quora?
I was about to say no. I disagree with what you're saying about the people voting it up and down. So flagging a thing and voting it are two different things. I, as you know, I'm very pro Russia in this war against Ukraine, and in Quora, the platform seems to be heavily pro Ukraine. So when I go along and I vote or downvote, there's usually overwhelming upvotes, say 800, 900 upvotes, and when I downvote, 15 or something.
That you've got to suck that up and understand that that platform
I agree,
means.
But I'm saying I don't. If instead of that, I could say, well, you're claiming that the war started in 2022. Actually, the war started in 2014, and this is why. This is how. And in 2015, and is it 2014? Russia got to the outskirts of Kiev, and here are the details. And this is the same war. That's the fact. Put that in there. Now, some people will ignore it. Some people will read it and go, I didn't know that. And then they can go and investigate it, and then they can reform their ideas. It's not going to affect everyone, but that's the best way to fight misinformation. It's not ban entire. It's not ban this. I'm not even calling for people to be banned. No, I'm not even the people against me. I'm not calling for them to be banned.
Banning is not the answer either. But like some of your favourite platforms, they shadow ban. Now, how are they doing that? You've been naughty boy. They don't tell you you've been banned. They just don't propagate your content. Mm-hmm. So that's a form of sort of restricting your voice. You can say who you want, and only your immediate followers will be able to see it. They can't share it because you have said content. You've put down information which is clearly false, so you've got the freedom to speak. It's just it won't be propagated. The platforms could do this. They could do this. Their algorithms are very, very clever as it is, because they note down the time it takes you to, that you're reading an article, or you sort of dwell on it a bit longer than normal. That's all time. That's all recorded. So they work out whether you're reading posts or not, based on how quickly and slowly you scroll articles and whether you're on them for long enough. So they measure all this. So you're telling me that they cannot do what we're talking about here? Of course they could. But where's the incentive on their part? Because if it's affecting their bottom line, they're not going to do it, are they? They're self-regulating, but are they? No. This is where we get the problem. Give them the opportunity to self-regulate and instigate some of these benefits, in quotes. But if they're not willing to do it, then there has to be an international body, because, let's be honest, social media is not bound by the boundaries of an individual country. Then an international body, so there's many different factions involved, would then come up with rules and regulations that will be imposed on those social media companies if they don't sort of reform, that's the word I'm looking for, the way that they should do. Because this cannot continue. They are polarizing whole demographics. They are allowing disinformation to come out, misinformation to come out and propagate, because it creates emotional responses, and that's something that has to be addressed.
Look, with the best intentions in excuse me, I'm just going to, 1 second here. Okay,
Bless
I didn't
you.
want to. Thank you. I didn't want to blow people's eardrums out with a
Sneeze. Yeah.
with a sneeze. With the best intentions in the world, historically, all our regulatory efforts eventually become so vague and so open-ended that they give far too much power to the enforcers. The human nature is to grasp ever more power and to pulling ever more power. It appears to be a fundamental aspect of far too many humans. Now, you give them a little bit, they give them an inch, they want a mile. Now, I'm saying that this, whatever international body you want to set up, whatever it is, first of all, that's never going to happen. You've got the American exceptionalism. You've got people with different points of view. How are you going to marry a Western liberal perspective with a Middle Eastern religious perspective? Yeah, how are you going to manage that? Somebody's going to be in the majority, and someone's going to be in the minority, and a lot of people are going to be unhappy. You can't do that. However, when you decentralize social media, which is what I'm actually calling for, that instead of letting big companies be in charge of social media, my solution is that we decentralize these platforms, break up these companies, and have federated platforms instead, so that you don't have anyone who can control the comments in YouTube, for example, and make sure that some people's voices aren't heard. No one can do that because no one controls the system. So, and if you don't like, with a federated platform, if you don't like what is happening here, because there may be a bunch of Nazis and they're calling black people all sorts of names and everything, get onto a less toxic platform, at least from my point of view, a less toxic platform. And let that. Same videos and everything, different experience, different outcome. Why must it be one voice controlling everything? Do you see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, that's a nice way of deregulating. It's possible. It's possible that we can just use our brains and have a better outcome than censoring free speech, because eventually the censorship, look at Keir Starmer, what he's doing in the UK. This is a UK that my grandparents wouldn't recognize. The fear of speaking out in England. We used to make so much fun. When I was growing up, when I was a teenager, I suppose the same with you. Who did we make fun of because they didn't have any free speech? The Soviet Union. Well, I feel like I'm living in the Soviet Union now. What happened? How did that happen? I thought it would be impossible because we had democracy. We had all those protections. And yet, here we are.
But we spoke about this on a previous show regarding rules and laws that keep coming out. They're forever eroding our freedom. Because no one ever reviews those laws. They don't expire. They don't have a time limit. Once they're in place, they're in place. So you're forever adding laws. Now, going back to
I remember you speaking about it, and I think we came up, I don't know which one of us, but we came together, I suppose. We came up with this idea of time limits. Yeah, time limits. Unless you renew it, it dies.
Yeah, it does.
So you've got to actually do something. You've got to put in effort. You've got to actively keep it going.
Yes.
Which I think is a brilliant idea.
Whether it's still required, whether it can be parked, whether it can be amended. So something has to happen. Yes, agreed.
If you can't be asked, excuse my language, but if you can't be bothered to renew it, obviously it's not that important.
No, indeed. So
like
something
the one about having a box at the back of the Hackney cab in London. You must carry a box that contains a blanket or something. And that goes back to the days of horses and buggies.
Yeah.
And I think the blanket was for the horse or something. And it's still on the statute books, and they still have to, theoretically, have them in Hackney carriages.
Okay, that's just nonsense.
Yeah.
Nonsense.
So that should have died, decades ago.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, okay, going back to the social media element, I think X and now Facebook and Instagram are trying to bring those verified stickers, aren't they? Where you have to pay for them, mind you, that you get a meta verified. So you get a blue tick, just like X. And X used to give, with X, you only have to pay an amount per month to get a blue tick. So it's not based on, your credibility scoring or anything like that. It's just based on you paying money. Meta, I'm still not convinced they've got it right either. I think they're doing something along the same lines. But before, X had it right, because you got you got a blue tick when you were a elevated trusted source. So you knew that if a message was coming out from somebody that had a blue tick, they were more trustworthy.
This is Twitter you're talking about, correct?
This is X.
Well, in those days it was Twitter.
When before Elon.
This is when it all started. Yes.
Yeah. See, they had that platform.
But it was left-wing nonsense. It was the only people that could get the blue. Well, not the only people, but in the vast majority of cases, the people who got the blue tick were leftists.
Well, that's a generic statement. You can't be 100% certain on that.
Yes, I can.
On Twitter.
Supported.
Well, if you can provide the data, we'll share it with our audience, because I didn't think that was the case. Your left view could be anything left of fascism, really, but so that's not really a fair call. Let's be honest.
Leftist woke, using the traditional definitions of left and woke. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's what I'm saying. Well, what do you left of fascism? I'm not. Who amongst the two of us routinely calls for bigger government and more regulations?
I don't say bigger government and more regulation. I don't. But think about it. Think about it logically, right? Just think about this logically. We as a species, humans, we're rubbish at self-regulating. Why do we have laws for driving, for instance? Because we can't drive without rules, boundaries. We have to certain sides of the road, indicators, stop signs. They're all laws, effectively, on governing a smooth transit across our road system. So we need the boundaries. We need time. We have time. That's a boundary.
I disagree that is to control people. I think it's we have those rules in place. First of all, because we need a way of knowing objectively what side of the road should I be driving on. So objectively, I should know. And secondly, in order to...
Why should you? Why should it matter?
Well, it matters because there's a car coming the other way at 70 miles an hour, and combined speeds are over 150 miles an hour, and that's not a good thing if those two cars hit each other.
Yeah, but if it's a free society, you should be able to do what you want.
No, it's not, that doesn't know what the freedom means. Freedom doesn't mean the freedom to hurt other people. There's nobody who defines a free society as being free to hurt other people.
Okay.
We live cooperatively
so rules
together.
Are required then, aren't they?
I was just explaining why, but you jumped in and interrupted me. So I'm saying, no, that's not, the rules are there, A, so that we know what side of the road we should drive on, and B, when there is a contretemps on the road, we know who was right and who was wrong, and we can prove it objectively in court. It doesn't become a case of the feelies, I feel you were right. Just hang on, you should have been on the left lane, and you were in the right lane, ergo, you were wrong.
Okay,
and that's
so why does this not apply in places like India and places in Africa? If you're driving a bigger truck or a bigger car, everyone has to get out of the way.
Do you know the number of deaths that we have every year? I haven't been in Nigeria for over nearly 2 decades now, but the number of deaths that we suffer, deaths and injuries that we suffer in Nigeria are carnage. And that's because, although we do have rules, we have drivers who can't read, and I don't know how they got their driving license, and they drive any which way they want, and then it leads to accidents. So it's a problem.
So it's not the rules that's the issue, it's the drivers at the issue.
Precisely.
Well, then that could be the case in social media.
They're making what you are saying. They're making that free for all society where, well, why can't we? The reason you can't is because it leads to chaos.
But that's why, and this is the problem with social media. Social media, if it's not got some regulation,
that's false equivalence. No. You're trying to make
false
something
equivalence at all.
You are not. That's not. I don't accept your proposition as 4 on 4 coincidence with what I'm saying. I'm not. I am. You are basically saying, well, let's ban drivers. I'm saying you don't have to.
I never said that either. You're putting words into my mouth.
No, I'm not. No, because you're saying let's ban free speech. That's like let's ban
I
drivers
didn't
and have
say
everything.
ban free speech either.
Let's have drivers only, or let's have cars that are only fully automated. Let's not let people drive. And I'm saying, hang on, you don't have to go that far. What you can do is to educate drivers properly. That's what. So basically, I'm saying, educate people, your friends who accept nonsense posts and all that. Educate them, and they will defend themselves. Teach them critical thinking; they'll defend themselves. We don't need to go the extra mile and to go, to your fascistic way of putting people up against the wall and. Well, now I know that was a bit hyperbolic.
I'm sure that's you.
Well, putting people up against the wall.
You've mellowed since our earlier shows because
I've never said put people up against the wall.
No, but you've beheaded
cut
them.
Their heads off. Oh, yeah, But when I say that's not fascistic at all, I'm Gemini. I don't have to be consistent, man.
Okay. I mean, going back to social media, let's be honest. I mean, social media could be the wild. It is in some instances wild, wild west because there are no boundaries. The Wild West was wild because it was who was the sharpest shooter. It wasn't who was right. It was who was the sharpest shooter. And the same with social media. It's not who's right, who's good at creating content that propagates. But the algorithm is the key. The algorithm belongs to social media companies. And they can manipulate that in any way they choose. And what about the suggestion of perhaps the social media companies having to allow openness of their algorithm for auditing purposes? Or should it be proprietary secret that they can keep to themselves what goes on in their algorithm? After all, it is their creation.
I think, well, that's why I say we should take it away from them, just boot them out. And I think that social media is far too important now. It's the town square now.
Yes.
It's the equivalent of the town square. And it's too important you can't leave let the town square, you can't leave it to hooligans, which is a little bit like what you're saying. So we are kind of on the same.
Okay.
But how to address it? I think we both agree that social media needs regulation. I think the difference is how we should regulate it.
I don't know how. I haven't got the magic.
I'm quite happy if people go along, if people can actually induce these platforms to reveal. What did you solve the problem? It just gets some very, very clever people manipulating that because they can read the source now, source materials, and they, you and I probably won't have time to wade through the code and everything. Who's going to do that?
No, it's huge programs.
Exactly. So I'm not really sure that's the. Do
you like the credibility scoring angle though? That people can score.
No,
users.
because I've suffered from it. I've been on the wrong end of it on Quora. So it depends who the people are. All I want is a very simple thing, and I think it's good enough. Let's just have facts. Let's have people tag along. Now, I do see a hole, by the way.
Go on.
In my theory, the hole is who says they're facts. I mean, look, I'm really anti-modern science because I don't think that modern science is science. I think it's nonsense. I think it's magimatics, I call it. Magical mathematics, nothing to do with reality. It's not science like Boyle, like Newton, like Faraday, like people like that. That was real science. Observe, experiment, theorize, publish, other people, peer review everything. Other people perform the experiments. That was beautiful. That was real science. And that is the science that leads to medicines today and to cars and things. It's the real science. Then you have these people standing in front of a whiteboard, throwing mathematical formulae onto the whiteboard and positing that some star, so-called, who even knows how far away, is doing this and is doing that, and blah, 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 based on zeros and ones coming in from some instrument in the sky. That is mathematics. Albert Einstein's theory of special relativity depends on something called imaginary time. What the hell is that? The hell is
Yeah, but
imaginary
that's
time? It's a complex
okay.
number.
I
It's
know, but
meaningless.
let's be
No,
honest.
I
Here.
know, I'm
It's
saying,
beyond our scope of learning. Not that we can't do it. We've
No,
never
you got,
studied
that's
it.
the point. They're talking BS, and because we can't follow along with what they're saying, I don't know. But all I do is I smell a rat, and once I hear something like imaginary time, I don't need to hear anymore. So I'm done. Now the thing is, what was I saying about social media? Yeah, the thing is that I can't get a word in edgewise to contradict and to point this out to people. And not a lot of people know about this imaginary time thing. I would love to be able to say, when people are saying, "Oh yeah, the universe is 13 point something billion years old because of this and that, and the dark energy and all that," I would just love to be able to say, "Yeah, you do know that this is all dependent on imaginary time, right?" And I think a lot of people
Yeah, but that's just a question. That's not backing it up with anything.
no, but asking the questions is all I require, because intelligent people, in my opinion, will go like I went, huh? Imaginary time. What's imaginary time? You look it up, and it's genuinely a complex number. Complex numbers, -1 times -1 is equal to -1. I've forgotten I. Remember? The square root of -1. It's like, what are you talking about? That's all we need to know. That these are speculations. And all you need to know is that these are speculations. Don't place your entire life on these speculations, or your entire outlook on life on these speculations.
I know that, but the thing is, a lot of that has been observed. Like what Einstein came up with, special relativity. I mean, we're digressing a little bit.
Actually, we're not even. Actually, there are questions about that experiment, because I thought the same thing. I was like, hang on, we have to.
How do you think special relativity works when you're sending probes out? It wouldn't have worked if they didn't have that.
Excuse me, I was just about to answer that. Actually, that's not true. There's a NASA guy, 1970s or whatever it was, and he proved that you don't need is that Einsteinian? You don't need Einsteinian relativity to account for the movements. But he was shouted down. Exactly what I'm talking about. People keep shouting other people down, and you and I end up not knowing about it, or stumbling across, like I did, stumbling across information. They don't tell you because they're controlling the blooming information.
But okay, this is the danger of your.
This is the danger of your approach. No. We need access to the information. Let us know, and then we will decide for ourselves. That's what you need in a functioning, vibrant democracy.
I get that. But you're saying now about Einstein's formula. We have sent loads of rockets and loads of things into space, all using that. So they're clearly that's working. Okay. I'm not disputing the NASA guy, but you can't dispute Einstein's theory of relativity either, because there's many things that have been proven subsequently based on that.
If you interpret,
hold on a minute, who was around before rockets were fired?
If you interpret the data that way, yes, then you can interpret it, and you can interpret it as being in agreement with Einstein's theory and whatnot. However, at the edges, again, you start having if, whens, buts, and howsoevers, as usual. And then you start having what you call is it escape stories or whatever it is? Well, this and that, for that reason, we expect there are going to be discrepancies at this stage. That's what happens. It's not a slam dunk by any means, but it is presented as being a slam dunk, because your entire argument now is only possible because they have control, they being the people who are at the top of the conventional society and of conventional wisdom in science, if you like, in the establishment. That's right. The people at the top of the establishment have prevented you from having access to all this information. And that's the point I'm making, that you must not let anybody control access to information. Information belongs to all of us.
I'm not sure that is true. I'm not sure that we've been deprived of information, of scientific information. I think it's all out there. It's not like it's been hidden.
Let's have a show on it.
Okay, we'll cover that. I think let's get back to this social media thing, because I'm mindful we're getting quite close to the top of the hour. I am more in favour of this credibility scoring. I know you're not a fan of it. And what makes credibility? Again, it's an opinion, isn't it? So on some posts, is it the post enjoyable? People have got time to answer all these sorts of questions. Is the post fun? Is the post political? Does it make a factual point? Yes or no? What did you think of it? Every post, everyone has to do that for every post. that'd be tough. That take away the fun of social media. But there must be a way of maybe every 5th post you get a mini questionnaire. You just have to tick of what you think, so that the credibility of an individual.
How do you handle the contrarians? Contrarians would love that, to have that kind of power. Because they would willfully putting things they did not believe.
Yes, but then people would have to give them a credibility score.
Well, the people giving them credibility score could be the same contrarians themselves. Now, I'm sending you a link, by the way. This is the NASA guy who successfully argued against some outcome of whatchamacallit.
The theory of relativity.
Yes.
Einstein's theory of relativity.
That is correct. I'm saying
so he says that it's nonsense, or debunk them, or does he just say you don't need it?
No. Experiments and everything. Let people give people access to the
link,
and they can go and have a look at it themselves.
We'll share it. We'll definitely share it.
So you didn't know about that a few minutes ago. This is what I'm saying. And I'm not even sure this is the other guy. There's another one yet who was very specific about how we park satellites in the sky and stuff. Anyway, there we go. So all I'm saying is that a lot of these people, they can't get the word out. They are prevented from getting the word out, whether it's through your social media algorithm, which it might be, but I don't think it is, because also they can't get into peer-reviewed journals, and this is why I don't like the peer review system. So at the end of the day, I hate that. So in the final analysis, which I hate also, so I keep using all these platitudes or whatever they're called. We absolutely must regulate social media in a way that people's voices and people's ideas are not stifled, and leave it to the individual to choose what they want to choose. It's not up to us to stop people from hearing what is available. It's up to us to fight misinformation. It's up to us to fight disinformation. But it's not up to us to prevent people from access to information.
Absolutely. But how do we define what's truthful?
I'm not sure we can. We just present the facts. As far as what we understand to be, what we know, what we think are the facts, we just present those and we go along. But everyone now has the information at their fingertips. They're not being corralled into a silo. They're not being teleguided.
Okay. But couldn't one person's truth be someone else's lie? Because it's dependent on cultures and contexts.
Not so much. It's almost as not so much. It's as if we corporately could act together to be this huge object, this monolithic object that is so big and so huge and so powerful that it can see itself in a shattered mirror. Game, set, match. I think you'll find. Pretty sure you'll find that game, set, and match.
I don't know what to say.
Just say what I say. Wow. Amazing.
You had to get that in at some point, and you've succeeded. Even though it means nothing. I'm sorry.
Excuse me, I've just used it. Haven't I just used it in a real life situation?
But it still means nothing to me. I want you to sum up, though. You still haven't given me a sum up of should social media be regulated in some of the way that we've
absolutely
discussed.
Should be, but the argument appears to be how I think everyone can accept that social media is presently in the West, by the way, it's not optimal. a lot of people who have run away, what they call, I don't know if you know about this, the TikTok refugees. The TikTok users in America who, because of
Oh,
the
that's
ban,
right. The little red book or something.
little red.
Do you want to explain
book.
that to our
Well,
listeners?
social media citizens in TikTok Americans on TikTok, because of the ban. By the way, the ban is in place. It's been reprieved for 90 days, I believe, by Donald Trump, but the ban still is in place. And he's saying that if TikTok doesn't agree to sell 50% of its shares to Americans, then the ban, comes into effect fully, and TikTok will be banned. And not only that, they're also crafting a law now to ban American citizens from using VPNs to connect to TikTok. So they're really determined that their citizens in this land of freedom and democracy and all that nonsense, their free speech and First Amendment, their citizens will not have access to TikTok. So their citizens went on to another app, which is in Chinese. I'm not even going to try to pronounce the name.
No, don't.
But in English, it is Little Red Book, which is like Chairman Mao's Little Red Book.
Yeah.
But it is sort of like a little bit like TikTok. It's not fully like TikTok. It's where Chinese citizens gather, I think 350 million of them or something like this. Something like that. Which, by the way, is more or less the size of the American population.
Yeah, population, yeah.
This is pretty amazing. They meet to exchange what they're doing.
Yeah,
this is how
pleasantries, how I do stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the nickname for the app is Red Note. So a lot of Americans have gone on to Red Note. Last time I checked, I think it was something like 1.7 million or something. They're going to Red Note, and they are seeing how people are living in China, and they're going, hold on a minute, this isn't what we were told. We were told that these people are technologically backward and this and that and everything, and look at how they're look at how they're
far
living.
Better than what they've got in the States, and they're supposed to be the best country in the world, and discovering actually that may not be the truth.
Exactly. And the thing about it is that the so-called ban and the regulation that they're inflicting on TikTok is not driven by concern for the citizen. It's driven by vested interests.
Yes, indeed. Right. Okay. Now, before we go, I'm just going to ask you, wonderful watchers and listeners, if you'd be kind enough to like, comment, and subscribe to our show on whatever platform you happen to be on, and we will comment back at some point. If, however, you'd like to engage with us directly, then you can join us on our free and open TNT Talkers group on Facebook. It's totally free. Ty and I are on there. Well, Ty might not be for a short while, but anyway. But we will respond to you if you wanted to chat with us directly on that platform. So we thank you in advance if you can like, share, and support our show. Now, if you've enjoyed this episode, please hit subscribe and stay tuned for more deep dives into prophecies, mysteries, and the unexpected twists of fate. You've listened to Tony and Ty, and we are the TNT Talk Show. But unfortunately, we have reached the end of the show for another week.